Our co-hosts today include the Admiral Bill Stubblefield. Billy.
Good morning, Rob. It's going to be a good day. The Badger's back.
The return of the Badger, Delegate Michael Height. And look, I don't know what happened. About 10 to 8, I left the room. I came back about 5-6 minutes later, and the Badger, who came in and said he was a contented Badger, was up in arms, the veins sticking out of his neck. He's spitting and ranting everywhere like Bill Cowher in his prime. What did you do?
Full throttle he was, full throttle. Any subject you mentioned, the Badger's back.
What happened? Michael Height, welcome back.
Good morning. Good morning. It's good to be back. You know, it's funny, there's a delegate down there named Marty Gerhardt. He's from the lower part of the state, and I guess the Badger comes out in committee sometimes, and he laughed one time. And he said, "You know, I figured out where your button is to turn you on."
Apparently, Bill did too.
He says, "But there needs to be an off button too."
And what's more, Mike, we discovered this morning there are a lot of buttons, not just a single button. There's a lot of buttons.
I have yet to find the off button.
Nor have we. Yeah. Our guest in this segment is the Speaker of the House, Roger Hanshaw. Roger, good morning, sir. Thank you for calling in.
Good morning. There is a lot to say about this.
Yeah.
There is a lot to say about this. I'm told that some have batteries you can remove.
Have you had the benefit of witnessing the Badger in action, Roger?
I don't know that I have. I am wondering now if we need to order some new nameplates.
It wouldn't hurt. It would not hurt.
You should talk to your caucus chair. He's encountered the Badger several times.
Oh, man. On the headlines today on the Metro News website, it says Morrissey signs budget bill, uses line item veto power 29 times to cut spending. I assume you are aware of that, Mr. Speaker.
Well, I became aware of it this morning with the rest of the world when we saw the story posted, Rob, yes.
Your thoughts on the governor enacting his line item veto power?
Well, it's not uncommon. Normally, we normally expect to see lots of chief executives do that. It's been utilized a lot in the past. West Virginia is one of a handful of states in which the executive does have the power to reduce certain appropriations through line item veto. It's unique to the budget. It doesn't apply to any other bill. We're proud of the budget we passed. We believe it was the right budget for the state of West Virginia. We believe it reflects the priorities that our members have said are important to the communities that we represent. So one of the things you have to realize is if you're going to unilaterally do that, then you own some of the problems that you reduce. So we'll be digesting the full magnitude of all those cuts over the next a couple days, which is part of what we do in the legislative process. It's a very normal part of the process, but we're proud of what we did. I'll stand behind it all day long. If there have been some reductions made, as there have, then the consequences that flow from those are not on us.
The ability to override a veto in the West Virginia legislature is fairly simple majority. Is there at this time any discussion you anticipate or feeling of wanting to override any of these vetoes?
Well, we're nowhere near that. I mean, we haven't even had a conversation among ourselves yet about what's been done. We just, as I said, saw the announcement this morning. We didn't participate in that process leading up to the story that you saw posted this morning. So it's way premature to even be talking about what comes next. Often, Rob, as you know, and now as Mike there with you, it's quite common for the legislature to meet a couple of times during the course of the year to deal with things related to supplemental budgetary appropriations, just in the routine course of business. So I fully anticipate that we'll likely be in a posture where we'll do that, and if there are actions to be taken at the appropriate time, we'll do that. And we haven't even had a conversation among ourselves yet, so to talk about what anyone may or may not want to do would be way premature on that part.
Roger, your cell's starting to garble up on us a little bit. I'm not sure if you're in a bad area or if we just have a bad connection here. So if that continues, maybe we'll ask you to call us back and reestablish a connection.
Yes, sir.
That sounded a bit more clear, absolutely. One of the reasons for vetoing some of the items listed in the article said the governor was looking to, I guess, save some money because it might be needed for anticipated gaps in Medicaid, PEIA, and changes to the federal tax code. Let's talk about Medicaid for a moment. Obviously, you don't know what the scenario is with the federal government. Have you been in touch with the federal representatives out of the state, the senators or the Congress people, to determine what the future of Medicaid funding for West Virginia will be from the feds?
We have, and that's the governor's not wrong. The Medicaid issue it looms large over the financial house of the state of West Virginia. But we know two things, Admiral. The first is that every dollar that the state is willing to appropriate to Medicaid, Medicaid will spend. So to say that we've adequately funded Medicaid that's never going to be a scenario that's true, because every dollar that you appropriate to Medicaid, Medicaid will spend. So at some point, we have to just simply declare that the spending priorities for Medicaid are X. We're going to fund at X, and Medicaid has to operate within X dollars. And that may sound a bit coarse or may sound a little bit callous, but it's nevertheless the way you have to do it, because every dollar that you're willing to appropriate to Medicaid will be spent. But second, the real issue that looms largest over the conversation around Medicaid is what, if anything, will happen to the federal match. So if you'll go back in history with me several years, Governor Tomlin made the executive decision to participate in the expansion of the Medicaid program here in West Virginia, and that took West Virginia to, I believe, the 90-10 match level, which to us, many states did that. The consequence of that is that it expanded the program dramatically here in the state. And there's talk in Washington, or was, I think is the appropriate verb, was talk in Washington about whether that expansion should be rolled back to the 70-30 match or even some other number as a part of the ongoing budget restructuring in Washington, D.C. Our understanding from our federal delegation is that that's been poorly received by the members of Congress, by the members of the House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate, and that the message has been conveyed to the administration by our representatives, and by I mean across the country, is that that's a program that's likely not to be a successful target for the ongoing budget restructuring. So we feel confident about what we did with Medicaid. We'll stand behind that, but obviously we know that if there are changes that have to be made, we'll make them just the way we always do make them. But that's the Medicaid situation.
If there are cuts, do you anticipate it would take a special session to be able to work out how to fund the differences?
Well, it all depends upon the magnitude of differences, right? So, I mean, there's some flexibility within executive departments to move some number of dollars around to manage ongoing operations. But yeah, if there's substantial restructuring of budget priorities have to be done, that's our job. That's the role of the legislature, and we're typically responsive to those requests.
Bill?
Good morning, Mr. Speaker. Thanks for joining us today. We've always found you to be very direct, very open in your answers, something we very much appreciate. I have two questions. One is a general generic question. One will be a bill specific. The general question is, you changed the procedure this year, emphasizing quality over quantity. Do you think that change was successful, and are you quite pleased with the results?
Well, I'm really pleased, and let me tell you why, Bill. First of all, we set out not to. A lot of people have said that our goal was to pass fewer pieces of legislation. Well, that wasn't true. It definitely was not the case. What we wanted to do was give more time to issues and just ask more questions. To just give our members an opportunity to spend more time talking to each other, talking to experts, talking to citizens, talking to people who are experiencing problems, and ask are we solving the problem as opposed to are we reacting to it. We historically we do a really good job of reacting to problems, but that doesn't necessarily mean you solve them. And I wanted us to spend more time actually solving the problem And we did that. We spent a lot of time talking about issues. We put a lot of bills on agendas, held hearings on those bills, and only then decided, you know what, this solution is not the actual solution that's needed. So Delegate Height participated in that. Our Committee on Health and Human Resources held a number of bill hearings only to conclude that, wait a minute, the solution that we're looking at here is not actually the solution that this problem needs. We need to go reformulate a different approach. And that's exactly what I wanted us to do. I wanted us to be more thoughtful about what we're trying to do, what is the problem we're trying to solve, and does this problem actually solve it, as opposed to satisfying ourselves that, yeah, we passed 300 bills this year and declaring victory based on what's effectively an arbitrary number. So it's a constant work in progress. We'll be refining it probably for a number of upcoming sessions. But for a first pass out of the blocks, I'm really happy with what we did.
Well, good for you. And from my view from afar, I think he was very successful. Now the Bill Pacific question. There was a pay raise to judiciary for the circuits and family, but not for the magistrates. What was the reason or the logic of not including the magistrates in part of the pay raise?
Well, bluntly, Admiral, I don't know the answer to that question. My understanding is that our colleagues in the state Senate removed the magistrates from this year's pay raise, and by the time it got to the end of the session, we had not time to put it back. Realize it doesn't become effective until July 1st of next year, which means there'll be another legislative session between now and then. So my expectation is that the House of Delegates will advance a bill next year to effectively achieve what we tried to achieve in our first bill. Before anyone gets a pay raise, everyone will have been brought into it.
Delegate Michael Height.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker. How are you?
Morning, Mike.
So I would have to agree with you. I like the new structure in the House this year with committees. That whole vertical integration I think worked really well. And having hearings, at least in the initial stages, I thought was great. Something that we probably didn't have before as much. So I think that worked really well. My question for you is, how do you think, I mean, you've been through a lot of sessions now, how do you think the House and the Senate work together this year as in relationship to how they've done it in the past?
Sure. Well, so Mike, you've been through this process a couple times now. For listeners who may not have been, let's take a minute and talk about what it looks like in the legislature after every election cycle. So every year or every 2 years, when we have an election, half the state Senate is up for election, and all 100 members of the House of Delegates are up for election. And in a normal year, you'd see a 15 or 20% turnover in the state Senate, and you'd see somewhere around a 25 to 30% turnover among members in the House. And the result of that is that after every election, the body totally reinvents itself. It's a completely different legislature after every election. There are new people in leadership roles. There are new people sitting in the chairs making decisions. There are new people in each of the majority and minority caucuses in both bodies. So it's really tough to compare how one legislature works with another from year to year because the members aren't the same. It's not an apples to apples comparison. It's not even an apples to oranges. It's apples to Cadillacs. It's just a different comparison altogether. But that said, there are some commonalities. We still this year passed a budget within the 60-day time frame and 60-day constitutional parameters that our state constitution lays out. And I'm proud of that because it's the only real requirement that we have. And our party has said for the last 11 years we wanted to get that work done within the time frame that the Constitution lays out. We did not like and do not like the idea that we have to come back into special legislative session to pass a budget. So the top priority was and should always be getting a state budget passed within the 60-day parameter. And as long as you've done that, as long as we've done that, I'll always declare that we've worked together well because it means we've satisfied our one and only absolute requirement and done so within the parameters available to us. President Smith and I have known each other since I got to the House He was elected in 2012. I was elected in 2014. So we had the opportunity to work together in the House of Delegates before he first ran for the state Senate. So our relationship goes back a number of years. He has good relationships with a number of his former colleagues who are now our colleagues. For example, he and Chairman Anderson on our Energy Committee served together quite well when they were both leading our Energy Committee a number of years ago. But everybody reinvents itself, and of course, next year won't be like this year because we'll have known each other as colleagues for a longer period of time. So it's going to be fine. It was fine this year. It'll be fine next year. It'll be different, but it'll be fine.
And just the House itself, we had we lost some major players in the House that had been there for a long time, like Espinosa and Householder and Amy Summers, who were major players in the House as far as leadership. And then we brought in some new people in new positions. Judiciary was all new. Obviously, health was all new. How do you feel like the new leadership in the House worked this year and as a whole?
Well, I'm proud of our team, Mike, and you're part of it. Here's an interesting data point for you. So when I told you I was elected to the House in the November 2014 election, came in and began serving in January of 2015. So I just finished my 11th legislative session. And while standing on the podium up there one day, I began to count how many members are still in the body today that were in the body in January of 2015 when I first came to the legislature. And I think the number is 11. I think the number is 11. I think if my both memory and math are correct, we've seen an 89% turnover in the membership of the House of Delegates in that 11-year period, which is extraordinary. But it points out two things. It points out, number one, the body turns over really quickly. So we're not a state with term limits, as all of us on this call know, but yet it turns over really quickly in its natural state. And secondly, it points to the fact that leadership changes, and that's a constant. That change is a constant. So at the moment, you're right. A number of listeners to the program this morning have been represented for a long time by very able, very capable representatives, many of whom and which were and are our dear friends still today. But realize we all none of us are irreplaceable, right? When we move on, someone fills our seat, fills the role that we once filled. So as has always been the case for a long time, listeners to the program are represented by people who are in leadership roles. You yourself, Mike, are helping lead one of the major committees of our legislature. Our Committee on Health and Human Resources handled some of the heaviest workload we had this year. Delegate Hornby chairs our caucus, serves on our Finance Committee, participates in a number of key meetings as we think about what the agenda for the House Delegates looks like. So listeners and citizens of the EP are still quite well represented.
You mentioned the budget earlier, and I thought the negotiations went pretty well this year with the budget back and forth with the Senate. I think you had experience on both sides. Jason's been around the legislature for a good while, and Vernon as well, Vernon Chris. So I thought negotiations went pretty well. So I was a little disappointed to see the line item vetoes because I thought we were working with the governor as well. But is there any legislation you in particular were disappointed that didn't get across the finish line this year?
Well, there's always things that we need to do more, Mike, in terms of how we think about restructuring West Virginia's economy. So there are things that relate to taxation that still need done. There are things that relate to how we regulate various aspects of business that still need done. We did not get an opportunity to spend as much attention or spend as much time or give as much attention to those areas this year as I think we would like to have. A number of us, I expect you included, but I don't want to speak for you. I'll speak for myself. Those are the things that I think really turn our state around and move our state in the right direction. So I'll be looking forward to spending the off season here, that as we refer to it, working on more and better pieces of legislation that focus in those areas.
Mr. Speaker, the Governor Justice and Governor Morrissey had totally different approaches to working with the legislators or legislative body this year. Do you think it was productive the way that Governor Morrissey interacted with the legislators?
Well, I don't know if it's fair to judge yet, Admiral. So the governor came in right at the beginning of a legislative session and had to first of all find the light switches in the governor's office before he then began trying to run a government. So I don't want to necessarily judge good or bad on anyone's first round out of the blocks. I think the governor had some priorities that we were able to get done this year collaboratively. I'm proud of the ones that we did. We passed an occupational licensing bill, for example, that I think is going to have real implications for our state. States that have done that same occupational licensing bill in the past have seen influxes of population and influxes of existing citizens onto their workforce participation roles. So I'm proud of that. I'm proud that he championed that. I think it's a priority item that will pay off for us. I am looking forward to spending more time with his team, with he and his team, over the summer talking about those kind of issues. And then next year, that would be a fair question for me to answer. Next year, I don't want to necessarily judge good or bad.
We have 2 minutes.
The result of someone being just tossed right straight into the pond.
Yeah. Fair enough. Good answer. Thank you.
We have 2 minutes remaining. I want to just quickly hit the data center bill and the microgrid bill. I know the state's anticipating generating a lot of revenue for that, Mr. Hanshaw.
Well, we hope so. I mean, it's a growing industry nationally, particularly in your area, Rob. Northern Virginia's seen just an explosion of this industry. We have a very minor presence of it here in the state of West Virginia at this point. We're trying to anticipate what it looks like if and when it migrates into West Virginia. We've spent a lot of time talking to people in other parts of the country where the industry is more prevalent, learning what they think they would have done differently had they been able to start with a blank piece of paper and create a regulatory structure from scratch. And we're just trying to learn at this point.
Thank you so much for your time this morning. We do appreciate it as always, and I wish you good rest, hopefully, over the next couple of weeks.
All right, guys. Have a great weekend. Thanks a lot.
And relax like the Badger's doing.
Have a good day, Roger.
I'm going to order a new nameplate. I've got to get up here this afternoon.
He did calm down in your presence. I'll give you that. You did calm him down. Have a good day, Roger.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.